This video is about why I hate the word flare-up, or why I think we need to change it. Yeah, why I think we need to get rid of it altogether, or define it as something new. Here is the thing. So, what do you guys think about when you hear flare-up? Like, I'm in a flare-up. What do you think about? Or I'm having a flare. Because I bet all of you think about something different, and that's why I don't like it, because there's confusion. Some people think that a flare-up is an increase in symptoms. So let's say, like, I'm drinking coffee now, which I need to take a sip of. Let's say that coffee gave me symptoms and I felt bad. Is that a flare? Can I say I'm having a flare of my Crohn's disease? I don't think so, but you might think so, and that's okay. Who's right, who's wrong, we don't know, because even doctors confuse it. Some doctors will call it an increase in symptoms. Other doctors will say it's disease activity. So what one is it? And that's why I think we need to get rid of it, because nobody has a clear description of what flare-up is. Others would describe it as disease activity, like drinking coffee. Is that a flare of Crohn's disease? In my mind, no, that's symptoms. Are those symptoms because I have inflammation? Perhaps. Or is it because I just don't tolerate coffee well? Or maybe I have IBS along with having Crohn's disease. Something could have made me feel bad, but it might not be disease activity. Others define flare-up as disease activity, that you have inflammation present in your digestive system. Okay, I'm having a flare-up. Does that mean that I have inflammation? Disease activity? And if it does, a flare wouldn't be short. Like, say, like in my description of drinking coffee, a flare-up in that instance of me feeling bad would be short-lived. Like, I drank this coffee, I got a flare-up, I felt bad, and then I felt better. But if it's disease activity and I had inflammation, it's not like, oh, I drink that coffee, my inflammation is there, and then it goes away 2 seconds later or an hour later. No, it has to be treated. So what is it, you guys? I really just don't like flare-up because it confuses patients. The medical community even describes it differently, or they're not clear about what they're describing, because truthfully, I think you can have symptom flares and I think you can have disease flares, and you need to use those words with it. If we're talking symptoms, we need to say symptom flare, and if we're talking disease, intestinal inflammation, then we need to say disease flares, because it can confuse a lot of things. It drives me crazy, and I don't even know, like, if it drives you crazy or why I'm even talking about this, but it's so important for patients to understand things. Like, we need a good understanding of our illness, and I think that doctors are not communicating as effectively as they could, and maybe it's not a big deal in their mind because they know what they're talking about and they're the ones that treat the illness and whatever, but we want to know and we want to understand, so they need to be more clear about the difference between symptoms and inflammation and what, like, a flare is. I think just being aware that you could be having a symptom flare, and that it's not necessarily active disease, it's not necessarily that you have inflammation present. It could be, because we do experience increase in symptoms from inflammation, but usually those increase in symptoms are long-lived. It's not like you just drink coffee and you have symptoms for a few hours and you're done. If you've got inflammation, probably everything that you eat and drink is causing you pain. You're probably going to the bathroom a lot more. You might see blood in your stool. You're going to have fatigue and all these other things. Like, that's usually when inflammation is present. But if it's just a symptom flare, your symptoms could be caused by I don't know why I had an alarm set. Your symptoms could be caused by, yes, inflammation, like I just said, but it's probably going to be long-lived, or it can be caused because you don't tolerate that food or drink well. You don't tolerate caffeine well, or you don't tolerate dairy well, or whatever it is. Maybe that's just how your body works and it has nothing to do with inflammation. Or maybe you have IBS, that's functional. It's a functional GI problem. It's different from inflammatory. You can have both of those at the same time. And it's important to know that symptoms and inflammation don't always correlate. So what that means is, and this is going to be a whole different video, I should just say it again in another video, but you can have symptoms and not have inflammation, okay? So you could be feeling bad. You could be getting symptoms because you don't tolerate certain things well. You could be symptoms because you have IBS on top of having IBD, okay? Things can cause you symptoms without having inflammation. Alternately, You could have inflammation present and be feeling great. And this is scary and dangerous because you might have underlying inflammation going on and you have no idea. You're feeling amazing. Meanwhile, all that disease is active until one day, finally you start getting those symptoms. But all along you have this damaging inflammation going on while you were feeling well. And if you weren't seeing your doctor or getting monitored regularly, that could cause a lot of problems. So it's important to monitor your disease even if you're feeling well. Go in and see your doctor, make sure that everything is indeed well, that you don't have underlying inflammation present, and that can be determined sometimes very simply, like checking your CRP or doing fecal calprotectin. It doesn't necessarily have to be a colonoscopy, though. Having regular scopes is a good thing too, but you need to monitor your illness even when you're feeling well, because you might be feeling well and think that you're in remission, and you're not. You actually have active disease going on. So because symptoms and inflammation don't necessarily correlate, sometimes they do. Sometimes you have inflammation and you have an increase in symptoms, but sometimes you have inflammation and no symptoms, or you have symptoms and no inflammation. Okay, so it can be all over the board. Which is why treating IBD just to manage symptoms is not very effective, because you might be not having symptoms, but the IBD is not actually being treated, which is another thing I'll talk about in another video, because that's a whole long thing. I'm going to teach you all sorts of things if you don't already know it, but maybe you do, because I know you guys are smart people. Alright, that's all I have to say about this, about flare-ups. I hate the word flare-up. Just thought you guys should know, because I think it confuses the community. I think doctors are confused about it. I think we need to be more clear about what we're talking about when we're talking about flare-ups, because it could be a symptom flare, it could be a disease flare. We're all confused about what it actually means, and then we start talking to people, and people are saying, oh, I'm having a flare-up because of this, and it's just, it makes me want to